quiet folds of history, few military forces have captivated the world's imagination quite like the Janissaries. Born from conquest, forged in discipline and devotion, and ultimately undone by their own power, these men stood for centuries as the sword and shield of the Ottoman Empire. But who were these fearsome warriors? And why did their remarkable journey end in fire? The story of the Janissaries begins in the 14th century, during the reign of either Orhan or Murad I, early architects of the Ottoman state. As their empire stretched across Anatolia and deep into the Balkans, the Ottomans found themselves in need of a loyal, professional army. From that need, a bold and unsettling experiment emerged, the creation of the Janissary Corps. At the heart of this new system was the Devşirme, a levy on Christian boys from the conquered Balkan territories. Young boys, taken from families in Albania, Bosnia, Serbia, and Greece, were brought into the empire, converted to Islam, and trained not just to fight, but to serve. To them, the Sultan became father, the Corps their family. Their past identities were erased, and in their place, a new loyalty was carefully shaped. These boys became Janissaries, or Janissary, meaning new soldiers. They weren't simply conscripts. They were elite infantrymen. Perhaps the first true standing army in Europe since the days of Rome. Their training was intense. Their discipline, absolute. In the early centuries, they were forbidden to marry, to trade, or even to grow beards. They lived in barracks. They trained in special schools. They marched to the haunting rhythm of the Mater Band. Armed with muskets, sabers, and early trench guns, they were among the first to embrace firearms in battle. Bound by faith, they followed the guidance of the Bektashi Order, which infused their service with a spiritual dimension, deepening their sense of brotherhood and duty. One curious tradition defined their unity, the Kasık Kardeşliği, or Brotherhood of the Spoon. Each Janissary carried a spoon in his hat, a simple symbol of communal meals and shared lives. They trained together, prayed together, fought together, and died together. Their bond was unbreakable. Yet this system, though born from forced separation, offered strange paths to power. From within the ranks, a talented Janissary could rise higher than most could dream. One such figure, Sokullu Mehmed Pasha, a Devşirme recruit from Bosnia, rose to become Grand Vizier, ruling in the name of 3 Ottoman sultans. In time, many Balkan Christian families came to see the Devşirme not only as loss, but as opportunity. Sons taken away could return years later as governors, generals, or viziers. In battle, the Janissaries were unmatched. They played a pivotal role in iconic victories, most notably the fall of Constantinople in 1453. They stood firm against Hungary, Austria, and the Mamluks. By the 16th century, their numbers swelled to tens of thousands. They were siege masters, elite marksmen, engineers, and sappers. Their campaigns included mobile hospitals, armories, and intricate logistics. The Ottoman military, with the Janissaries at its heart, was among the most advanced forces of the early modern world. Sultans recognized their worth. Many would appear in uniform and stand in line to receive their pay, a symbolic gesture of unity and respect. Yet, even as their influence grew, seeds of decay quietly took root. In the late 1500s, things began to shift. Sultans began allowing Janissaries to marry and even to pass their positions onto their sons. This broke the Corps' original principle, that every Janissary was an outsider reshaped by the empire. Standards fell, training declined. Many new recruits were no longer foreign-born boys, but Turkish civilians, men who bought their way in for privilege and protection. The Corps slowly changed from a fearsome military machine into a comfortable social institution. By the 1600s, the Janissaries had become a powerful political faction. They opposed reforms. They demanded bribes. They interfered in the palace, even deciding who would rule. Their loyalty to the Sultan, once absolute, became conditional, dependent on pay and favors. Their first major revolt came as early as 1449, over wages, a demand they won. It set a dangerous pattern. Over the following centuries, revolts erupted again and again. In 1622, in 1730, in 1804, and in 1807. These uprisings were not mere mutinies. They were political spectacles. The Janissaries, by then, could make or unmake a sultan. Their most infamous rebellion came in 1622. After a failed campaign against Poland, Sultan Osman II sought to disband the corps. The Janissaries reacted with fury. They captured him, and they killed him, a sitting sultan, strangled in his own cell. By the 1800s, the once elite corps was a shadow of itself. Numbering over 130,000, most Janissaries no longer fought. They collected pensions. They blocked reforms. They left the Ottoman military increasingly outdated in a Europe racing toward modern warfare. And then came the reckoning. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II, having survived their plots, acted decisively. He had formed a modern army in secret, trained in the Western style. The Janissaries, as expected, rebelled. But this time, Mahmud was prepared. He declared them traitors. Imperial artillery rained down on their barracks. Fires engulfed their quarters. Thousands perished. Survivors were executed or exiled. This brutal purge became known as the Auspicious Incident. It marked the end of the Janissaries, once the pillars of Ottoman might, now consumed by their own defiance. Their legacy remains both noble and tragic. The Janissaries were symbols of empire, of loyalty, innovation, and strength, but also of corruption, resistance, and decay. Their story mirrors that of the Roman Praetorian Guard, the Egyptian Mamluks, and Russia's Streltsy. Elite troops who, over time, became threats to the very states they once protected. Today, the memory of the Janissaries survives in Turkish history, in global culture, in books and films and games. Often romanticized, sometimes feared, but beneath the legends lies a very human story, a story of transformation, of ambition, of power, and ultimately, of downfall. As you drift deeper into sleep, let their journey echo softly in your mind. The rise and fall of the Janissaries is more than history. It is a quiet reflection on what power grants and what it eventually takes away. The Janissaries were not merely soldiers. They were an institution, a paradox, a legacy. From shadows they rose. To shadows they returned. And with their fading march, so too began the long twilight